Hi and welcome to Music 61 and 61A. I'm Professor Bierson, and this semester we're going to go over the basics of ear training. To get started, I'd like for us to watch a movie clip. And while we're watching, I want us to listen very carefully for the music that happens at the very beginning and continues on through the background of the scene.
I should have known that you would be here, Professor McGonagall.
That theme is memorable for a lot of reasons, especially the opening notes, which are so recognizable to anybody. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. One of the reasons why it's so recognizable is because of the intervals. And so an interval is the way we measure the distance between two notes. And those first two notes of Harry Potter's theme, ba-dum, are what we call a perfect fourth. They're four notes apart. G, A, B, C, ba-dum. And that's what we call a perfect fourth. So today we're going to cover the perfect intervals, the perfect fourth, and the perfect fifth, and the perfect octave. So we've already talked about the perfect fourth. Let's go ahead and talk about the perfect fifth. So we could try to identify intervals by counting the lines and spaces on the musical staff, which is perfectly fine for theory, but when we're in ear training, we want to be able to identify them just by hearing them. And one of the ways that I think is great for identifying intervals is by listening to theme songs or pieces of music that feature those intervals prominently. So by looking at the perfect fifth, I'd like us to listen to the following song, which comes from a really famous movie. That was the main theme to Star Wars, and as a theme it signifies Luke Skywalker. It's so memorable partly because of the intervals that it uses at the beginning. Ba-da-da-da-dum. That second interval is so prominent, and that's what we call a perfect fifth. Ba-dum. And if I counted up the scale, you would see why. B flat is 1, C is 2, D is 3, E flat is 4, F is 5. So B flat, F. They're 5 notes apart. Now we can identify these intervals by counting up the lines and spaces. And the best way, again, is to be able to hear it and then identify what it is. The third and final perfect interval is the perfect octave. Octave means that it's 8 notes apart. Okay, so one note and then the next note will be 8 notes apart from each other. If you do that, you wind up getting the same exact note 1 octave higher. So if you think about C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 8 notes, and I've done C and C. One song that features the perfect octave at the very beginning is a song that most people know. It's Somewhere Over the Rainbow from Wizard of Oz.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
So the beginning of it, somewhere over the rainbow, it's an A flat to an A flat. So those are 8 notes apart. And again, if you were to be asked to identify a perfect octave, you could think of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and that'll give you a lot of help. So to sum up this part, if you want to identify a perfect fourth, you could just think of Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter. If you want to identify a perfect fifth, think of the Luke Skywalker theme from Star Wars. And for a perfect octave, think of Somewhere Over the Rainbow from Wizard of Oz. Now, intervals can be of 2 types. What we've just been discussing is what we call the melodic type. So that's when one note happens in a melody and then the next note is that particular interval away. Okay, so they're played melodically, one after the other. The other type is called harmonic, which is when we actually play both notes at the same time. All right, that takes care of our interval lesson. Let's go on to rhythms. So rhythm in Western music is measured according to meters, which are patterns of accented and unaccented beats. And we typically focus on meters in 2, which we call duple meters, 3, which we call triple meters, and 4, which we call quadruple meters. That means a strong beat happens every 2 beats, every 3 beats, or every 4 beats. The way that we demonstrate that, or the way that we embody that measurement when we're performing a piece of music for this class, is through conducting. So I don't know how many of you have ever conducted a symphony or a choir before, but let me show you a little bit what it looks like. Like Bugs Bunny showed us, the conducting is basically when we take our hand, or he had a stick in his case, and we would measure the beats, okay? And so in a 2/4 meter, for example, as a duple meter, our conducting pattern is just going to be down, up, down, up, down, up. It's the simplest possible pattern that we can have. It's a downbeat, and then an upbeat, and then a downbeat, and then an upbeat, okay? So I'd like for you guys to practice this right now. Take your right hand or your left hand if you're left-handed, and go down, up. And you want there to be a little bit of a bounce where the beat of the music is gonna be. So down, up, like you're bouncing a ball. The moment you release the ball is like the beat of the music. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. All right, so we're going to use that conducting pattern while we also learn how to perform and read rhythms. So we know meter and we know conducting, but we have to fill in these meters and the conducting patterns with rhythms, right? So the way we do that is we focus on rhythmic elements. The first rhythmic element I'm going to focus on is the half note. It's written with an empty note head and a stem, and we use the syllable ta to sing it. So I'm going to conduct 2, and I'm going to do ta over both of the beats. I hold my A over both of the beats. Ta, 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 ta. Okay, that makes a half note. And I have to say ta over both beats, otherwise it's not a half note. The other thing that we can have is a half rest, which is also 2 beats, but it's like a little hat, a top hat. That means that we have silence for those 2 beats. It's a half rest. So we rest for 2 beats. So it's like this. Super easy. Okay, that's a half rest. The next rhythmic element is the quarter note, which is a filled in black note head with a stem, and that gets 1 beat, and we say ta for that. Ta, 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 ta. See, so there's 2 beats in every measure, the downbeat and the upbeat, and I use ta for both of those. We can also have a quarter rest, which was like a little swiggle, and again, that's silence. So let me repeat a measure with 1 quarter note and 1 quarter rest so you can hear the difference. Ta, 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 ta. Okay, so that's a quarter rest and a quarter note. The third element I'd like to talk about is the 8th note. The 8th note takes up half of a beat, so there's 2 8th notes for every quarter note, and then 4 8th notes for every half note. And so those are drawn with a filled-in note head and a stem with a flag if they're 1 8th note by itself, or it can be 2 or more 8th notes, and that's when we put a beam over all of those 8th notes, just to show that they're a group of 8th notes. For those we say TT. Okay, so every conducting pulse that I do, down or up, I'm going to say 2 T's for each beat, like this. T, 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 T. Homework assignments for rhythms will be of 2 types. One is called dictation and one is performance. For dictation, you'll hear a recording of a rhythm, And your job is to then identify what those elements are, and you're going to write it down. The other kind is performance, so you'll get a particular exercise to perform, and then you're going to do it on tas and ts with conducting. So for example, let's look at one together. When we're about to start a performance, the first thing I always do is I look it over, I scan it through, and I check out what the elements are. So I see a half note, so I know that I'm going to do ta for 2 beats. I see 2 quarter notes, so those are both ta, ta. And then I see a quarter note and 2 eighth notes, ta, ti, ti. And then I see a half rest. Then I keep looking and I see the same kind of pattern. I see a half note, I see 2 quarter notes, and then I see 2 eighth notes followed by a quarter and then a half rest. Okay, so now I have kind of an idea of what I'm going to do there. To get into the exercise, I conduct only the upbeat, the last upbeat before the next downbeat. So here it is. Ta, 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 ti, ti. Ta, 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 ti, ti, ta. That's the rhythm portion of the lesson. Let's go on to the final thing, which is melody. For the melodic portion of our class, we're going to continue the conducting, but instead of the rhythmic tas and ts, we're going to use what we call solfège, which is basically an easy way to remember how to sing the notes of the major scale. For an example of what solfège is, let's go to this following clip.
Let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. When you read, you begin with
A, B, C.
When you sing, you begin with do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi. The first 3 notes just happen to be do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Oh, let's see if I can make it easier. Do, a deer, a female deer. Re, a drop of golden sun. Mi, a name I call myself. Fa, a long, long way to run. So, a needle pulling thread. La, a note to follow. So, tea, a drink with jam and bread. That will bring us back to do. Oh, oh, oh.
Do.
A deer, a female deer.
Re.
A drop of golden sun.
Mi.
A name I call myself.
Fa.
A long, long way to run.
So, a needle pulling thread. La.
A note to follow. So, tea,
A drink with jam and bread.
that will bring us back to do.
A deer, a female deer. Ray, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself. Fa, a long, long way to run. So, a needle pulling thread. La, a note to follow. So, tea, a drink with jam and bread.
That will bring us back to do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, so do.
That was Sound of Music starring Judy Garland, and from that you can remember the solfège syllables are do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, those are all 8 notes of the major scale, and those are the syllables that we use. For the first part of our semester, we're going to focus on melodies that only go by step. That is, all the scale, either up or down. So I can make a pattern using the scale like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. All the notes of the scale, I didn't jump around anywhere. I just went one to the other. Okay, we call that stepwise motion. The major scale consists of whole steps and half steps. So the first 2 steps of the scale, do, re, that's a whole step, re, mi, that's another whole step. Now mi to fa is shorter. Mi, fa, that's what we call a half step. those two notes are right next to each other on the piano. In fact, it's E, F. If you look at the piano, there's no notes, there's no black note in between there. Mi, fa, that's a half step. Now from fa to sol, that's a whole step. Sol to la, that's a whole step. La to ti, that's a whole step. And then ti to do is another half step. And you can see again that there's no black note in between the B and the C on the piano. And that's how we can tell that that's a half step and not a whole step. Just like for rhythm, there will be two kinds of assignment that you'll complete this semester. The first assignment is going to be a dictation. So I'll play a melody that's using steps of the scale. And you're going to identify the pitches and the rhythms that I played. And you're going to write it down. And then you're going to perform notated melodies. So let's take a look at an example with conducting and solfège. When I look at this example, the first thing I want to do is check the rhythms. So I see that there are quarter notes and eighth notes and a couple of quarter rests in there, so it's not too difficult in terms of the rhythms. And then I look to see what's going on in the melody, and I see here that there's only steps. There's no jumping around. All the notes are going from one to the other using the major scale. Alright, so now that I know that information, I'm going to try and perform it. Again, to lead into the melody, I only conduct the upbeat that goes to the next downbeat. So here we go. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do, ti, do, re. Mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Alright, so that's how you perform a melody using solfège and conducting. That's going to do it for today's class. You'll get some assignments to complete for the end of the week.